Today on the show, we welcome Richard Big R. Macon, an inspirational, thought-provoking leader, educator, entrepreneur, and artist who has spent his life uplifting youth, families, and communities. From founding Faith That Works Christian Church to inspiring change in classrooms and prisons, Big R's journey is a testament to resilience, faith, and transformational leadership. Currently leading professional mentors and pursuing a doctorate in ministry, Richard brings powerful stories, music, and motivational insights that you don't want to miss. Faith, beats, and a second chance. The journey of Richard Big R. Macon. Let's chop it up. R.E., how you doing, brother?
Oh man, I can't complain, brother. It's so good to see you.
Yes.
I first want to say I am so encouraged by you and your strength to overcome your obstacles. Sometimes our silent witness is the best witness.
Absolutely.
I've been watching you from a distance, and I'm gonna be honest, I feed off of your strength. So thank God for you, my brother.
Well, you could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be with us and the listeners today, and we definitely appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about Richard Macon. Where are you from? Where you grow up?
Yeah, first, you talked about that moniker, Big R,
Mhm.
and that's fine. People call me that. I used to be a Christian hip hop artist back in '09. Even before that, I've always rapped and did encouraging music. But now I refer to myself more as Past Star, and Past Star just simply means past Richard.
Yeah.
Past the old Richard with the old understandings, the traditional thoughts, the traditional ways. I'm somewhat of a shepherd now, though I don't shepherd a physical building. I shepherd people at large. Anybody who wants to listen, I'm going to share the truth that God has revealed to me through the years. So where I'm from our hometown area, Franklin County. We call it Funk Town.
Yes, yes.
Funktown, and we grew up together. Funktown is a small tobacco town area industry, thrived on tobacco early on.
Yep.
And it's sort of in the backwoods on the outskirts of Raleigh on the eastern side there of Raleigh, northeastern side of Raleigh. So we were inundated with a lot of traditionalism and a lot of things that our parents passed down to us over the years. And I'll always be grateful for those things, whether they be good or bad, or whether I view them as good or bad. I'll always be thankful for that and wouldn't change that for anything.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So growing up in Funky Town, Funk Town as we call it,
Hmm.
you went to high school there, and then you decided to pursue college. So
Yeah.
once you got to college, tell us a little bit about your choice in colleges, what you decided to do. I mean, now you're on this journey of becoming a man. This is
Right.
going to be the next evolution of your life. What did that look like for you?
Wow. It was scary to say the least. But I want to go back a little bit and say that when I was young, God always dealt with me. When I
Hmm.
was 7, even younger, it was almost as if God knew that I was going to endure a lot of traumas and things that would try to sidetrack me. And so, as quick as God is, I believe God went before me and made some of my crooked places straight.
Hmm.
How did God do that? God began to show me early on through the bars of nature of God's reality and his realness. I remember one day I was probably about 7 years old, and I was looking at a Jimmy Swaggart telecast. I felt God lead me to go outside and go to the edge of the woods and look up. And so I did that. And when I did that, I saw the sun. It was shining very brightly, so bright that I couldn't even continue to look. I heard the birds chirping. I saw the trees, the top of the pine needles just blowing in the wind. And I heard a voice on the inside of me now, which I identify as God, telling me I have a great work for you to do. There was nobody around saying, "Do you know Jesus as personal Lord and Savior?" There was nobody around talking to me about Islam or the Jehovah Witnesses, and there was nobody around giving me a systematic thought of religion. It was just me and God.
Yeah.
From that point on, I knew I had a father that was going to be there for me regardless. And so, moving up to your question in terms of my college experience, I'll first say that I graduated at the bottom of my class. I never even thought that I would go to college. And if people know me, I come from a family of masons, master brick masons.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brick masonry teacher said one day after I had joined the delayed entry program with the Marine Corps, he told me, he said, Richard, you don't need to go to no military, you need to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Yaba Williams. I'll forever be thankful for him because I did not think that my grades were good enough. We were young, played around. I know I did. I wasn't
Yeah.
focused. I was smart, but I did not study. I did not study because I didn't have to. I could just
Mm-hmm.
and I could just look at it one time and get by with a 70 or 71, and that was
Yeah.
good time for me. And so my brick masonry teacher saw something in me. And he said, Richard, my son went to this HBCU, Livingstone. I want you to go out there to that school and look at it and see if that's the school that you'd like to go to. So
Mm-hmm.
I got with a brother of mine, Andale Wilson, and his father, and they drove us out to Salisbury, North Carolina, a place that I hadn't even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Like Salisbury, that sound like steak, man. What you talking about? So he took us out there, and the rest is history. When I got to that college the first day, I felt the camaraderie, the unity, the blackness, the togetherness, and I knew that that was where I wanted to be. And in retrospect, I ended up getting accepted and actually got a small scholarship to go, even though my grades did not reflect my sharp academia. So that is the experience at Livingstone was wonderful. And again, that was another level in my journey in which God began to show me a lot about myself.
Mm-hmm. I tell people all the time, I said, some people get to choose and then others are chosen.
Yes.
And I believe that you are one of those chosen ones. Recall, growing up, we grew up together. Parents were best friends to our
Yes.
listening audience. And we grew up almost like big brother, little brother.
Right. Right.
Spent a lot of time together. And I noticed the transition in you early on. You
Yes, sir.
know, there was something that happened, and you could tell that there was a divine presence that was guiding your life because you changed.
Yes,
And you
sir.
changed, not saying, you want no gang bang, we're none of these
Right.
things, but you can see a personal spiritual growth in a person without them even realize it was happening. And I
Thank you.
saw that change in you, and definitely proud of you for that. It goes to show for all of our listeners out here, especially college age kids, that you can achieve. There
Yes.
are options and opportunities for
Yes.
you. This young man is telling you that he wasn't the best in academics because he didn't
Right.
apply himself fully, but he still had the opportunity to go to college and
Yes.
try to impact and make a difference in his life. And so, I was the complete opposite. You knew where I was. I was very
Yes.
studious, and
Right.
but I remember one time we had a conversation and you always said, Tony, man, I look up to you, you and Jermaine, and
Right.
we were setting that stage, that pathway that you could be this.
Yes.
You could be excellent. And you
Yes.
have continued that in your career. So now you're at college and you're picking a major and you're trying to decide, hey, this is probably what I want to do with the rest of my life. How did you make that choice?
Well, I always wanted, for some reason, to be a judge, and I didn't fully understand why I wanted to be a judge. And so I majored in political science. And the first few college years was great. I was probably one of those cool ones on campus everybody liked,
Hmm.
everybody looked up to, until one day I met a brother and I saw him seated by himself. His name was Sam Smith, and he was another influential guy. There was a lot of influential men in my life along the way. Your dad was one of them. I've always looked up to your dad's strength and his passion for his relationship with God. And a lot of that rubbed off on me as well. So, but in college, I met this guy named Sam, and he was sitting by himself. He was a loner. He
Hmm.
did not look like everybody else. In the predominantly black school at this time, back in 92, 93, it was cool to walk around with your swag, with your pants hanging down, and they viewed that as being a man.
Hmm.
But remember, I'm on a quest to become a man.
That's
And
right.
so I looked at them and I looked at Sam, who wore his pants almost like a nerd up to the back of his rear end and had his shirt tucked in every day and sat by himself, but nobody befriended him. And so one day I decided that I'm going to go over there. I don't care how many cool points I lose because I knew I would lose them and I knew I was paying a big price. But I went over and sat with Sam and began to build a friendship with him.
Mhm.
And exactly what I thought happened happened. A lot
Mhm.
of my friends, when they saw me associate myself with him, all of the cool points I had, all of the smooth points I had, all that left. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, were you really my friend? Were you really my friend because I befriended this guy that's over there by himself? So I continued to befriend Sam. And I remember going him, he was from a small town called Mountain City, Tennessee. And in his small area, he was one of few African Americans in his little town. Probably the population was so small, the African American people at that time in his community was related to him.
Mhm.
That makes sense. And
Makes sense.
so he had recent stories of his cousins being killed and murdered. There was places that he wouldn't go in Mountain City, Tennessee, because he was afraid of what would happen. But I remember Sam taking me up on these mountains to the highest, some of the steepest slopes that I've ever seen, with ravines and waters right below us. And he wasn't scared.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, my God, this guy's more man than those guys at the college that's walking around hardcore with the pants hanging.
Uh-huh. I love it. I
And
love where you're
I
going with
said,
this.
this man. So I began to befriend Sam after I went through that. And I met his mom. She prayed over me and so forth and said, you have a calling on your life. I remember she was one of them fire mountain women.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the fire fell. She said, "You will come back to the mountains and you're gonna do a great work." I remember that. And I'm saying that to say that my journey in college was one that still God was on my tail. God never let me get away. As much as I tried to go out and live a riotous life and do whatever I want to do, and did in some cases,
Yeah.
God's love always tended to reel me back.
It's that small, still voice that you hear, right? Even before you know about the Holy Spirit, I tell people all the time, we're all God's kids.
Yes.
And we all started at some place.
Hmm.
And whether you know him or you don't know him, he still speaks to you because that's the only way you will get to know him.
Yes.
And so I remember you spoke about when you were younger and you were looking up into the sun and God was talking to you. I remember when I was diagnosed with cancer and I had a similar situation and I was outside
Hmm.
and he spoke to me and he
Yes,
said,
sir.
"I'm going to heal you, but this is what you need to do. Let the doctor be the doctor.
That's
You
right.
do all you can and more and watch me do the rest."
That sounds like
There's a
God to me.
three-step formula. And look, I'm like you. He didn't do it through a surrogate.
Right.
He didn't do it through an intermediary. It
Right.
was a one-on-one relationship
That's it.
that he had to let me know I am your God and you are
That's right.
my child.
That's right.
And what did that do in return? It increased my faith even more because I
Yes.
knew he was real. You know,
Yes.
we grew up reading about it and hearing about it, but when you have this encounter with him,
Yes.
it's a done deal. So
It's a
you
done
couldn't
deal.
get away from it.
That's right.
Even no matter what you were doing, you were chosen.
I share.
Yes, sir. You were chosen. So what did you do with that? Did you keep running or at some point did you just say, "You know what, Lord, whatever your will is for me?"
It became at some point, I couldn't run. At
Mhm.
some point, I had to stop and face God head on. And that's exactly what I did. And God sent yet another person, another man to
Mhm.
lead me to a word church. And I had my first spiritual father. And when I say that, I had other spiritual fathers, but this one was really a father that took me under his wing and nurtured and coached me
Mhm.
in the things of God. And
Mhm.
sit under Pastor Ronald Hash. His brother is J.C. Hash, pastor of St. Peter's World Outreach Center in Winston-Salem. And
Mhm.
he pastored, was bishop of Love Christian Center. And learned a lot from him. One of the things that I want to highlight in this meeting with you is the amount of, with you had cancer and that was trying to take over your body and you believe God for deliverance and God delivered you. And I believe that. But also some of us, right? we're dealing with extreme layers of trauma. And in those levels of trauma, it's almost like Paul with the thorn in his flesh. God gave him strength to continue to do the work, as
That's right.
evident because by the book he was writing when he was telling us he had the thorn in his flesh.
That's right.
And so, what I am saying is, in our weaknesses, God is made strong. And through these traumas that I experienced in life before I got to college, after I got to college. And
That's
so,
right.
what God showed me is that there's another level to this thing. And it starts with faith. But just like Hebrews 11 and 1 says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence. Now comes the evidence. That's what we're talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
so now with the evidence, God is ready to do something to show us that we don't no longer have to believe in that way. We can know that God will. And
Yeah.
through my bouts with trauma, I know that God can.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes scab is pulled off. People don't mean to do that to you. They don't mean to traumatize you, but you have to learn to fight through it and keep God first. And I like to tell people to keep pushing, not because we're trying to obtain any earthly thing, but the race is not given to the swift nor the strong,
That's right.
but the one that endures to the end.
I try to make it simple for people. God had to feel the infirmities of his creation. And
Yes,
so when you look at Satan, who has been there with God, petitioning God, saying, look at this creation you made. Look at
yes,
what they're doing and how they're acting and how they're behaving. God is deity. He
yes.
couldn't feel that. So he had to come to feel that.
Had to
And
feel
in
that.
his feeling that, what did he feel? He felt the trauma. He
He
felt the
felt it all.
pain.
Yes,
I was telling someone, I said, we talk about mental health. I said, Jesus had mental health issues too.
yes, he
When
did.
he got frustrated with the apostles and said,
Yes,
y'all
he
walk
did.
with me and can't even pray with me.
I'm
When he
glad
was
you
on
said
the
that.
cross and he was saying, Lord, you my father, you got angels that can come down here and take care of this. Like we say in the
Right.
streets, right?
That's
You can
right.
fix this.
That's
Why
right.
am I suffering this cup? He was talking to himself, battling with these traumatic incidences. Feelings are not satanic.
No, they're not. No, they're
God
not.
put those in us. And
Yes.
like you said, sometimes we don't know how to address those things because our first response is a spiritual response,
Yeah.
which could be, but most of the time it's not. It's understanding the emotional things that God has placed in you and how
Well,
there's,
people don't understand that when they're praying over you and they say, "Well, we're gonna rebuke this in the name of Jesus. We ain't going nowhere." Well, the whole time you thinking you are making the trauma worse right now.
yeah, yeah.
With that. And so what I have come to understand is that the Father allow the Son. The Father allow us to move through this journey. We're going to have disappointments. We're going to have hurts. We're going to deal with things. But God has given us all the power over the enemy. As long as we know that, as long as we know that, we're going to be all right.
That's the rub. That's the trick, right?
Yes,
He
sir.
wants to keep you in darkness so you don't understand who you are, what you are, and the power that you
That's
have.
so true.
And then when you're in positions of authority and in places you don't supposed to be, there is no power with what you're doing because you're out of
Right.
place. And he knows that too. So he'll
Yes.
continue on and let you keep doing that, because that's still effective for him. You still don't
Right.
know who God is because
Right.
you out of order and you out of place. So we're at college. You've made a friend.
Yeah.
You're getting deeper into your studies. What's happening now as you get closer to graduation? What is happening?
It's surreal. I thought initially I wanted to be a judge, but if anybody is familiar with HBCUs, sometimes their costs are a little steep
Yeah.
just because they don't have the support of the state. And so what ends up happening is some of us, if we fall a little bit short in some courses and have to retake courses, that kind of thing, we're forced to have to change our major. And that's exactly what I did. But even that was the plan. That was part of God's plan. My changing it from political science to history
Mhm.
because I loved history anyway. It's part of why I wanted to major in political science. And even when I was in high school, I was really into Black culture and Black history. And so when I began to delve into history, that began to open me up to the realities of some things that had transpired chronologically through time. And it started helping me to understand why I was dealing with some of the traumas I was dealing with, while my family was dealing with some of the things they were dealing with. why their ancestors dealt with some of the things they dealt with, why the church thought the way it did, and it just intrigued me more.
And so you went on, you founded Faith That Work Christian Center. How did that happen?
Yeah, Faith That Works Christian Church.
Mhm.
Well, what had happened is God, like I said, I've gone through a lot of trauma in my
Mhm.
life. And
Mhm.
so because of that, God has placed a gift of love in me. So what I try to do with people and what I have a tendency to do is, if I can say it in this way, is over love. I
Mhm.
over love, and it comes across as protectiveness. It comes across as, because I'm trying to give that which I felt I did not fully get.
Right.
And so what happened is I decided that I was going to start my own residential treatment facilities to
Mhm.
love children. And the
Wow.
reason why I wanted to do that was because I was led into that. I was working as a supervisor at an agency that an African American man owned. And I got promoted, things like that within his small company. And I was super young at this time. I may have been 23, had just graduated college. And I said, man, he's doing this. I can do it too. I can do this for myself. I don't necessarily have to work for somebody else. And I know I want to love these people. So let me try this on my own. And so within the context of that time was when I also got married and I started a business called Crossroad Youth Services. I
Mhm.
started that business around 2002. And I say business, but it was more of a service. And I began to deal with children with severe mental health and emotional issues. I'm remembering our first client. She was a young lady who had been in the system for at least 9 homes. She had been through 9 different group homes.
Wow.
She was very violent. She was very strong, though she was young. I think when we received her, she may have been 8, 9 years old. She couldn't stay in school. She was climbing poles. And I refused to give up on this young lady, my wife and I at the time. So after we started this business, this company that went out and solicited our program, they gave me the absolute hardest client I think they could give me, because they were probably trying to discourage this old young buck not to get into this kind of business. So me, being the competition stubborn man that I am, I decided I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it
Mhm.
anyway. So we took this little girl in, and it was one of the toughest things that I would never regret a day in my life. April taught us so much. She taught my wife and I so much patience. There was times when I had to restrain this young lady because she was going to hurt herself. Had to restrain her from the time we left the hospital until 45 minutes later, for example. And I'm talking, I was strong. I worked out constantly. She would have me sweating because she was so dismayed, so hurt, so boggled down with all of the things she had experienced. And when she transitioned from our home, we had had her about 6 years. In the very next Christmas, she sent me a card saying, Happy Father's Day to me. And
Mhm.
we often keep in touch with not just her, but a lot of our clients that we've worked with over the years. And so from that company, which grew to 3 homes, the Crossroad Youth Services grew into 3 homes. I dealt with a lot of highs and lows there as well that I'm not going to go into.
Right.
But in those 3 homes, at the time, I was making so much money at such a young age that I began to develop haters that I didn't even know I had. And I'm talking in high places that were fighting me. I remember there was a time we were going to open up this one facility in a small town. There was a prison probably about 15 miles down the road. There was a strip club not far down the road. And the home was commercial business industrial in terms of what it was zoned for. So we were in the right zoning area, but the commissioners, every one of the commissioners fought it and said that we couldn't do it. And it was for no reason at all. We could not expand for no reason at all. And when I brought these things up, there were some interns from Catawba College there at this time, and they were like, they couldn't believe it. They were very upset about it. um, but I learned a lot about racism at that time. Of course, at this time, 26, 27, I learned a lot about these mountains that people will put in your way, that your intentions can be right and good, but like you said earlier, the enemy will try to block it and keep
Mhm.
Well, all of these businesses was only leading up to this bigger vision that I had to start Faith That Works Christian Church.
Mhm.
And the monies that I was acquiring from that, I was saving in order to invest in the church that God wanted me to create this kind of church that wasn't focused on people's tithes and offerings, that was focused on loving the community and giving back. And my wife at the time, she was a big help for that, big support for that. So through the businesses, Crossroad Youth Services is how I springboarded our church.
So, you're very active in the community. You're doing all these things. You're pouring into people. How do you get poured back into?
Wow. I have a pastor, Pastor Ronald Hash. I can call him to this day if I need something. He often spoke to me. And along the way, God also sent other men to connect with me and encourage me. There was one pastor who was closely affiliated with the late Robin Gould. His name was Pastor Brown. He was out of Concord, North Carolina. He was older than I am, but a very strong influence in my life at the time. We connected as brother churches and supported each other tremendously. I was able to rub shoulders with a lot of pastors and things like that that he knew. And so those guys poured into me. Also, at this time, I was heavy into the evangelical movement, which had a lot of people like Joyce Meyer and Kenneth Copeland and Miles Monroe. And I used to constantly listen to these people. I had prophecies and things of that sort, people telling me that I was going to be on TV and so on and so forth. And so they poured into me. And
Mhm.
also, I spent a lot of time with God, Tony, a lot of time in prayer. A lot of times I would get by myself and just sit alone and just seek God.
And so you're getting poured into, have the homes, your bigger vision is the church.
Hmm.
But then this prison, you mentioned the word prison, and
Yeah.
then you started having a prison ministry. What
Yes.
clicked for you to say, you know what? Add something else to my plate. I'm going to do that too.
Well, just the need. It was just the need. I saw people who were good people in the prisons, and I saw men that were smart men, intelligent men. Part of our vision of Faith That Works Christian Church was to win souls to the body of Christ by preaching and teaching the word of God to the lost. And we believe that a lot of those people were incarcerated. My ex-wife, she had a lot of family who was incarcerated or in and out of jail. So I began to get very familiar with these people, began to go perform in some of the prisons and in the youth ministries and minister to some of these brothers, go in and minister in the facility itself. And all of that was fulfilling. But that wasn't the end of the story.
Mm.
After pastoring and pouring myself into the church for 10, 11 years at the end. And when I tell you pouring myself, Tony, I'm talking about completely selling out to the point that I cared about nothing but Jesus and making sure that people was born again, set free and delivered. I've seen people get healed from alcohol instantly. I've seen street folk come to church and said they never felt so much love, but they felt that in our church. Our church grew from just me and my wife essentially to about 120 people, which for us was big, 120 people on our books. And then it grew even a little bit more than that. But one of the things that I saw after 10, 11 years is I'm like, God, wait a minute now. I've been doing this. I looked up, 11 years had passed. I'm like, I'm looking at the people, they were growing spiritually, but their lives holistically was not getting better. And that bothered me as a pastor. I began to think, am I doing something wrong? God, tell me. And so I said to myself, maybe I need to go get more education.
Mm.
And so that's when I decided that I'm going to go to an academic seminary to learn more about at the time, I thought how to be a better pastor.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going back into school to pursue my master's in theology.
You're dropping some nuggets here. I like what you're saying. You're painting a picture, and I know some people out here listening saying, man, I'm resonating with him because I like the humility that you're showing because it is not about you, it's about the people. And
Yes.
even doing that, you're still asking God, how can I be better? What am I doing? Because you want to keep yourself in the right position to represent. God.
Right.
And that is huge. So for all the upcoming ministers or people that are ministers, sometimes you have to go above and beyond and consider yourself in
Right.
all that you're doing, because
Right.
this isn't about you, it's always about them. If you could give a word to someone that feels like God is calling them, or even the youth today, you are a counselor and you're someone that speaks to the youth a lot. In your disposition, what word would you give to these young men and or people looking to come into the ministry?
I would tell them that God is God alone. And I would tell them that they need to spend time in the presence of God, however that looks for them. They need to spend time. I would also tell them that knowing God is probably 90% about knowing yourself. I would say about 90% of that is knowing yourself because we are created from God. God is in us, God is with us, and we're closer to God than we think. And it's us that keeps the walls up between us and God. And I would tell them, spend time with God. Spend time getting to know yourself. Don't rush into ministry without knowing you. Don't rush into ministry without knowing God. People can have good intentions, right? And those good intentions can destroy people.
And I've seen that.
And not just that, truth, young man, young woman, is God. Truth. Don't ever forget that.
Where do you think the disconnect is with our youth today? You're in the trenches. What is
Yeah,
going wrong?
that's an interesting question. I don't know if it's going wrong. I don't know if it's, when the children of Israel went off course by the way of the wilderness and they had to endure for 40 days and for what, 40 years, when they
Hmm.
had to endure for 40 years, did that supposed to happen? See, that's a question that is tough to answer because if we're not there, we need to be there. And even if it takes us 40 years, we need God. That's the important thing.
Hmm.
So I
Well
think,
said.
yes, so I think that's a tough question to answer. I don't know if it's gone wrong. I think when I look at things as they are as it stands, we got a lot going on in the political world. We got a lot going on with we had this huge pinnacle in 2008 when Barack Obama came in off as African American people, and me particularly, because he was saying that he was going to cater to the least of these. And so, when I look at his 8 years and our 8 years on high, but then again, I see as a whole America in their new lows based on President Donald Trump and his ideologies that seems to be completely opposed to the evangelical way of the far right just 10, 15 years ago. You have to ask yourself, are we supposed to be here? Some people won't wake up unless we're here.
See, that's a good point. I love this because number one, God is the center of this.
Yes.
And what you're saying is perhaps this is the will. This is where you're supposed to be because of these transgressions and the things that you're doing, i.e., the children of Israel going off course, and he let them meander for 40 years, because of the things that they wanted. They
Man,
wanted a king, they wanted to go back, they wanted all these things. Yeah,
man will never take God's control.
that's
Never,
right.
ever. It's
Hmm.
not possible. So
Hmm.
God uses these things to his benefit, to God's benefit, excuse me. God's used these things to God's benefit, and we get to know God better.
So you're trying to point people back to God through everything that you're doing. In the prisons, you're trying to point people
Yes,
to
sir.
God. Where did the music come in? I mean, I've known you to be into music since I have known you, but it continued on. Where
Yes.
was that fire and love for the music?
And believe it or not, Tony, that music is still evolving. I have still stuff in me that because this journey is ongoing. The music
Mhm.
doesn't stop because my life don't stop.
That's right.
Things change. We learn, we grow, we evolve. So, but the music came. Okay, one of the things I just said was this. I said, a part of knowing God is us knowing ourselves. So
Mhm.
one of the things that God revealed to me is that in some ways we get closer to our own authenticity when we get back to the things we love. And I always have loved music. Always. You remember I used to rap secular and
Yeah.
all of that. But I
Yeah.
learned that I could rap with a purpose and I didn't have to be condemned by it. And so I'm a music person anyway. Somebody played some country music the other day and they was like, "Do you like this song?" I was like, "I love it. I like any good music." I'm a music man, a music person. So especially now that I'm older, I can appreciate the lyrics if they are speaking to my spirit. And even some secular music, when I listen, I don't just throw it away. I listen because there are things in there I can take from. It's equivalent to alcoholics giving me a scripture. I'm not going to say, keep that scripture to yourself. Keep that good word to yourself. Give it to me. I could have been like you. And in some ways, I am like you. Alcohol just ain't my thing.
There you go.
So I don't, God, it ain't too hard to point people to God if we will open our eyes. The music has always been there. And I really did more of that traveling and when I was pastoring. And I thought it was a unique combination to be what I would call at that time an anointed pastor and an anointed rapper. And people were shocked at the transitions. There was times when I dressed up in a suit and I would be preaching this word and sharing the gospel, and then I had the street clothes underneath and they can put the street clothes on and start rapping, There was times I was in front of crowds that I never thought I would be in front of, and they're saying my lyrics. Can't nobody do you like Jesus. And it was the most amazing experience of my life. And so I was under a record label, God Chasers Entertainment. Brother named Brinson out of Jacksonville, Florida, produced some of my work. Also, Tony Stone, he's produced Lecrae and everybody else. I worked with him back in the day. My first album, Let 'Em Go, did a whole lot better than my second two albums because I was transitioning so much. It means a lot to me. It just didn't do well as my first album did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can still purchase the Let 'Em Go album on Amazon, the Rated R album with God Chasers, and I think I have Last First also with God Chasers Entertainment. You can go over there. He has a host of music on his site, including some of my old music. So it just came from just that inner love of music. When we grew up and rap came into play and we heard those beats, man, me and the people in the community, we would bounce and I was rapping and they was like, how you rap like that? I would freestyle off the top of my head and then I would get into battles and I saw that I had a gift and I used it. I used it in the church. I use it outside of the church. I don't rap much now at 52 years old, but I do think I'm going to do one more album that's going to sum all of this stuff up that I'm sharing with you today.
That's amazing. You want to do a rapid fire real quick? Let's do a
Sure,
little bit
let's
of
do it.
rapid fire.
Let's do it, brother.
Well, you mentioned a couple people. Who is one mentor that changed or impacted your life the greatest?
I would say your dad, Wilbert Williams.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
Dad, if you listening to this, he just named you. And why? Why is that?
I was so young and impressionable when you guys took me to church. It was a holiness church way at the cross. I still remember it. And I remember going, 'cause y'all was in the church all the time.
All the time.
So I knew when I came to stay all night with y'all, I knew that I was going to be in church. And I remember one day I think it was a Bible study day, and I went and I played the drums, and I remember playing Planet Rock on the drums in the church. And everything bad happened after that, man. I was like, I'm getting all this bad luck from playing Planet in the church. I can't do that no more. But no, but Wilbert, like I said earlier, he had a passion. When I look back on Wilbert, I love Wilbert. A lot of things I wouldn't say that he said back then because I remember some of those things. And when I think about it now, I'm like, well, but he loved God.
Yeah.
He loved his family.
Yeah.
He had passion for God. And
Yeah.
that's the part that stuck with me. And it never left. Also, and I would include in that my own dad, because my dad, he wasn't perfect by no stretch of the imagination. That man knew how to work. He would work
He
and he would
did.
bring the money home and lay it on the table. He might have done a little dirt here or there, but
Mm-hmm.
he would bring that money home. You hear me? He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't playing about working. I've seen my daddy work two jobs so that me and my sister, and one of them jobs was in a tobacco field. while he was driving a gas truck so that we could wear name brand shoes.
I remember your dad, man. I remember back in the day when the supercharged he had the supercharged Buick, which
Yes.
was kind of like the
Turbo.
SS. Yeah,
Yeah.
the turbo. I mean,
Yes.
we were like, wow, he got
Yeah.
that fast turbo.
Yeah.
Like Grand National Regal, but most
That's
people don't
it.
remember Buick made one, and your
You made
dad
one.
had that version.
Ooh, I wish we still had. I think my mother wrecked that car. Thank God she's okay. But
Mhm.
yeah, I remember that car. It would be a classic today.
It will be a classic today, and I remember how that you did come to church, and we spent a lot of time at your house because your dad, you had one of the first video games. We played
Yes,
Donkey Kong. You had the
sure did.
ColecoVision.
Yeah, I forgot that. You're right. You got a good memory, man.
Yeah, so
God
we would
bless
come
you.
over there and just play the ColecoVision, the
Yeah, that's
Donkey
it.
Kong.
That's it. Them was the days.
Yeah, it was the days, but God had a purpose for
Yes, sir.
all of us and in all of our lives.
Yes, sir.
And like you said, I one thing about my father is I learned to appreciate God and know God for myself in spite of how at that time being young how it felt so disruptive because you couldn't really understand all of this. But
Right.
what you did understand was that you had a father and your father, I think he became a minister too as well, right?
Yes.
And
He
so
oh, he
both of
loved
them
God.
showed us the
Whew.
love of God and it
Yes.
was in us.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't reject him.
Right. Right.
And that's something to
Well,
appreciate.
and age teaches you things.
Yes.
Age teaches you that none of us are perfect. We don't have room to talk about anybody in a negative way, um, because we've fallen short.
Well,
Mhm.
let's do another question. Most influential book that you've read.
Oh, man, I got a couple. I like Walter Williams, The Historical Origins of Christianity.
Hmm.
And the reason I like that book by Walter is a very easy read, a basic book, but he also has a passion for his people. He has a passion for Black people. And there's an intersection, at least in my mind, when it comes to understanding theology, spirituality, in the African American experience and the African diaspora at large. There's an intersection. And I think that African American peoples have not tapped into that because we don't like to study and we don't like to read. We just like to pass things on. But it's that knowledge that's going to give us power to overcome all the parts of the enemy.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Guilty pleasure snack. I know you work out a lot, but if you gotta have it, what is that thing you going to get?
Man, I got to let them Larry protein cookies go.
It's the
The
Larry
ones with
protein
the
cookie.
vanilla, they tear my stomach up every time and have me bloated. I'm gassing, but I eat them every time. Man, pray for me.
Look, I like ice cream, but I can't eat it because of lactose. I told somebody if you were going to interrogate me, all you got to do is give me milk. I'll tell you
Yeah,
everything you want to know.
I know, right? That Lenny and Larry's got me whooped. That's that
That
thorn in my
Larry
flesh.
little cookie.
Yeah, that's my thorn in the flesh right there.
You are well traveled. I know you just came from Africa, but if
Yes.
I could ask you one place that you could either retire to or go visit and spend some extended time at, what place would that be?
I want to spend and plan to spend some extended time in Egypt. I want to go
Mhm,
there. There's a lot going on by way of these wars and stuff now, so it's probably not as safe to go now. But that's
mhm.
something I do want and plan to do in my future is not live there, but I definitely want to visit there and see the pyramids firsthand, walk and touch those.
Mm,
Yes, sir.
okay. What are you most misunderstood about?
Wow, that's a good question. I think I'm most misunderstood.
That's heavy, right?
That's a good question. 'Cause I don't Imma be honest, Tony, I've learned, and it's taken some time, to not indulge myself so much with what people think about me, because the one thing that I've learned is that people are gonna think what they wanna think, and so now I truly live free. I don't live according to people's standard, I answer to God. But I think I'm most, misunderstood about my love, if I had to say anything, my love for family.
Hmm.
Like, I really love family and unity. I really love togetherness, but I like wholesome and healthy togetherness. And if I cannot have that, I will be happy and wholesome and healthy solo dolo.
By yourself. Look, we're talking to Richard Macon, Faith, Beats, and Second Chances, the journey of Richard Macon.
Yes,
So
sir.
complete this. Faith that works is,
A church that is set on winning or rescuing minds, wills, emotions.
love that. Y'all got that? I
Yeah.
love that. Your life's soundtrack. So you're gonna do a CD. You're gonna do a culmination of everything that has happened in your life. I don't know if you want to tease it or not, but if you can, if you thought about it, what would that soundtrack be named?
I see organized confusion with my third eye, spiritual. People's doing rituals is pitiful. Last day miracles performing, never born again. Sin overcome like a regiment in your area. I mean, segment or apartment complex. I'm in your section with no intimidation. Me and Jesus, two been congregation coming at you. See, we fought giants, mean and defiant, walked through fire, came out fine. Move mountains, bump climbing, peace to rise to new horizons. This be the sun, so on. Cast mics like stones on demons' thrones. As I dismantle, they rap channel. What's your handle? Mine is JC, son of God. Royal priesthood makes me the rap lord. Cut you off like HBO. They raps are so. Mine's so dope. I got the right one, baby. God would never fail. To hell with them lyrical, non-lyrical, soggy like cereal, subliminal. Played out style, they's a criminal. Selling out the soda, make money with enough nerve to think it's funny. Red Fox said, dummy.
Oh, you heard it here. I don't know if that'll soundtrack, but you got it here first. How about this?
I gave you the whole sound. How about
You
that?
gave me the whole sound. There you go. Somebody sign this man up. We got to start Eagles Don't Quack Records. Hey, listen, a motto that you live by.
Just treat others as you want to be treated.
That sounds so simple, right? But so hard to do sometimes, isn't it?
Yes, it is because we want to get people back. We want to retaliate. And it's easier said than done to not do that. We sometimes make ourselves look more small when we try to retaliate, and we look bigger when we don't. So it's better to just stand with God and be obedient to what God is saying.
Amen to that. There's a measure of self-reflection that we all have to do. And I want to ask you if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what would you tell yourself? And how would you tell your younger self that these experiences would shape you and bring you joy right now?
I would say it's like eating. Sometimes when we eat fast because the food smells so good. And in eating fast, we don't savor the flavor. And so I would say to my younger self, let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. At the end of the day, this is all about God. That's why we're here.
That's perfect. Faith, beats, and second chances.
That's it.
Richard Past R. Macon. Man, it has been a pleasure. We need to do a
Yes, sir.
part two. Thank you for your time. Thank you for dropping these nuggets to our listeners. And we definitely appreciate you being on Eagles Don't Quack. Where can people find you at?
They can email me at balancelifecoach1@gmail.com if they want some coaching. I do very, very affordable, basic coaching. Feel free to hit me up there. Also, if you want music, go to that same email and email me and tell me, you like some of the music that's being played today. You want to hear more, and we'll get you some music. And don't worry about the price. I don't care about that stuff. We want to get you what God is saying to you. And I also have a TikTok called Conversations with Pastor. There I have a lot of my opinions and a lot of my understandings. I've incorporated all of the things that I've learned into these. Talk a lot about politics. I talk a lot about spirituality. I talk a lot about God and God's oneness. And there's reasons behind all that, but you can check that out. I had a few videos to go viral. Then go over to my YouTube channel, Conversations with Pastor. I think that's the last four numbers on the end of that. Conversations with Pastor 1245. But if you Google it, Conversations with Pastor on the YouTube, I'm sure, or go to YouTube, I'm sure it'll come up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Also, let me put a plug in for God Chases Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
You guys go over there. Also, you can find my second album, Rated R, will be on his list. I think you could find that on all the social media music outlets. So
Mm-hmm.
go over there to godchasers.com and look for some of my music. Big R was my rap name back then. Still some good music over there. Check us out.
Don't just follow, make sure that you subscribe. Don't
Yes,
just give
sir.
a thumbs up, but hit that subscribe button.
Yes, sir.
Again, brother, we thank you, man. Thank you for all the work that you're doing in the community. Stay fast, stay strong. Thank you for support of the radio station and the podcast Eagles Don't Quack. And mainly thank you for supporting Big Bro here, man. Love
You
you,
got a
man.
big bro. You got a king.
And
I love you, man.
yes, sir. Good to have you.
Be
Thank you.
blessed. Yes,
Enjoy
sir.
your day. Be
You too.
blessed.
You too.